In February 2026, New Zealand drivers could pay up to $1,500 in fines without ever being pulled over, and many won't even realize what they did wrong. Sounds unbelievable? That's exactly why this update matters. New driving laws are quietly rolling out that could drain your wallet, add demerit points fast, or even take your license away for mistakes that used to get a warning. AI-powered cameras, stricter speed tolerances, and zero-tolerance rules mean the road is no longer forgiving. It's constantly watching. Here's the scary part. These laws don't just target reckless drivers. Everyday commuters, delivery drivers, parents, and tourists are getting caught because the rules have changed, not their behavior. One glance at your phone, 1 kilometer over the limit, or one misunderstood rule could cost you big. Stay with me till the end, because law number 10 is already shocking drivers across New Zealand, and once these fines hit your record, there's no easy way back.
Number 10. Much higher fines and instant penalties. By February 2026, New Zealand drivers could face some of the highest on-the-spot driving fines in the country's history. The goal behind these changes is simple but aggressive. Make breaking the rules so expensive that drivers think twice before taking risks. Road safety studies consistently show that higher fines can reduce repeat offenses, but they also reveal something worrying. When penalties rise too fast, ordinary drivers are often hit the hardest. Under the updated system, fines for speeding, distracted driving, seatbelt violations, and unsafe lane use could increase sharply. What used to be a manageable ticket may now cost hundreds or even thousands of dollars, especially when combined with administrative fees and demerit points. In many cases, penalties may be issued instantly through cameras or automated systems, meaning you could receive a fine days later without ever being stopped or warned. For low- and middle-income drivers, this creates serious pressure. Research shows that financial punishment doesn't affect everyone equally. A large fine may be an inconvenience for some, but for others it can mean missed rent, delayed bills, or mounting debt. Delivery drivers, shift workers, and commuters who rely on their vehicles daily are especially vulnerable. There's also the issue of frequency. With more enforcement tools on the road, drivers could be fined multiple times in a short period for small mistakes. A few minor errors in 1 month could snowball into license suspension or insurance hikes. The system becomes less about correcting behavior and more about survival on the road.
Number 9. Demerit point system changes. By February 2026, New Zealand is expected to introduce major changes to the demerit point system. And for many drivers, this could be more dangerous than fines themselves. Demerit points don't hurt immediately, but they quietly build up in the background. And once you cross the limit, the consequences hit hard. Road safety research shows that drivers often underestimate how quickly points can accumulate, especially when enforcement becomes stricter. Under the updated rules, points may be issued more frequently and for a wider range of violations. Minor offenses like slight speeding, rolling through stop signs, or brief phone use could now carry points where they previously didn't. The time frame for accumulating points may also be shortened, meaning a few small mistakes in a single year could be enough to trigger automatic license suspension. What makes this system especially risky is how invisible it feels. Most drivers don't check their point balance regularly. Studies on driver behavior show that people adjust habits only after punishment becomes obvious, but demerit points work quietly, often catching drivers by surprise. By the time a warning arrives, it may already be too late. There's also a long-term cost. Once points are added, they can stay on your record for years, affecting insurance premiums, employment opportunities, and commercial driving eligibility. For professional drivers, one suspension could mean lost income or job termination. Even for everyday commuters, losing a license can disrupt work, family responsibilities, and daily life. The real danger of the updated system is not reckless driving, it's complacency. Drivers who believe they are generally careful may not realize how strict the new thresholds are. In 2026, staying legal won't just be about avoiding big mistakes, it will be about avoiding many small ones that quietly add up.
Number 8. Tougher rules for foreign and tourist drivers. By February 2026, New Zealand is set to enforce much tougher rules for foreign and tourist drivers, and the impact could be immediate. Tourist-related road accidents have long been a concern, with studies showing that unfamiliar road layouts, opposite-side driving, and local rules contribute to higher crash rates. In response, authorities are tightening requirements, but many visitors may be caught off guard. Under the updated framework, foreign drivers could face stricter license verification, mandatory translations, and closer scrutiny at vehicle rental points. Some drivers may be required to complete short safety briefings or digital knowledge checks before being allowed to drive. Ignoring or misunderstanding a local rule will no longer be treated lightly. Fines, demerit points, or even instant driving bans could follow. Rental companies may also be legally required to share driver data with enforcement systems. This means violations could be traced quickly and penalties issued even after a visitor has moved on to another city or another country. For tourists, the idea of enjoying a road trip could suddenly turn stressful, especially when fines arrive long after the holiday ends. Expats and temporary residents are also affected. International licenses may only be valid for shorter periods, and converting to a New Zealand license could involve more testing and stricter medical checks. Driving without proper conversion could lead to serious penalties, even if the driver has years of experience elsewhere. The bigger issue is awareness. Many foreign drivers rely on basic rental advice or online summaries that may be outdated. In 2026, not knowing the rules won't protect you. New Zealand roads are becoming less forgiving and more closely monitored. And for visitors, one small mistake could turn an unforgettable trip into an expensive lesson.
Number 7. Vehicle safety and modification restrictions. By February 2026, New Zealand is expected to tighten vehicle safety and modification rules, and many drivers may not realize their cars are already at risk of becoming illegal. Authorities point to road safety research showing that certain modifications, even popular ones, can increase crash severity or reduce vehicle control. As a result, inspections are becoming stricter and penalties for non-compliance are rising. Under the updated regulations, changes to exhaust systems, suspension lifts, wheel sizes, lighting, window tinting, and body kits may face tighter limits. What was once allowed with basic certification could now require special approval or retesting. Vehicles that fail inspections may be ordered off the road immediately until repairs are completed, leading to unexpected costs and downtime. For everyday drivers, this is more than a car enthusiast issue. Many people install aftermarket lights, roof racks, tow bars, or performance parts without realizing these can affect safety ratings or sensor systems. Research on vehicle dynamics shows that even small alterations can change braking distance, stability, and airbag performance, factors regulators are now taking more seriously. Work vehicles and utes are also under scrutiny. Modifications commonly used for tools, loads, or off-road work may need updated certification to meet new standards. Without it, drivers could face fines, failed WOF inspections, or insurance complications after an accident. The financial impact can be significant. Reversing modifications, recertifying vehicles, or replacing parts can cost thousands of dollars. Worse, insurance providers may refuse claims if a vehicle is found to be non-compliant, even if the modification wasn't directly responsible for a crash.
Number 6. Driver monitoring and in-car technology rules. By February 2026, New Zealand is moving toward stricter driver monitoring and in-car technology regulations, and this could change how private driving really feels. With studies showing that fatigue and inattention are among the leading causes of serious crashes, authorities are turning to technology as the solution. But safety improvements come with a trade-off: constant monitoring. Under the updated rules, certain vehicles, especially commercial fleets, rental cars, and rideshare vehicles, may be required to use in-car cameras and monitoring systems. These systems can track eye movement, head position, lane behavior, braking patterns, and even yawning, all in the name of preventing accidents. If the system detects signs of fatigue or distraction, alerts may be triggered, and in some cases, the data could be reviewed later. For drivers, this means behavior behind the wheel may no longer be private. Research into driver monitoring systems shows they can reduce crash rates, but it also reveals growing concerns about data storage, access, and misuse. Who owns this data? How long is it kept? And could it be used against a driver after an incident, even if no law was clearly broken? Private car owners may not be exempt forever. As costs drop and technology improves, similar systems could become mandatory in newer personal vehicles. Even rental cars used for short trips might include monitoring without drivers fully understanding what's being recorded. There are also practical consequences. Alerts and automatic interventions could limit driving freedom. Sudden warnings, reduced vehicle performance, or logged violations that affect insurance premiums. Studies suggest that knowing you're being watched can change behavior, but it can also increase stress and distraction. In 2026, driving is no longer just about skill and attention, it's about how technology judges your behavior. And once monitoring becomes normal, stepping away from it may no longer be an option.
Number 5. Tougher immigration and visa screening laws. By 2026, New Zealand is preparing to introduce tougher immigration and visa screening laws, reshaping who can enter, stay, or work in the country. These changes are being driven by concerns over housing shortages, job competition, public services pressure, and national security. While governments argue that stricter screening ensures stability, critics warn that the process may become more intrusive than ever before. Under proposed rules, visa applicants could face expanded background checks, including detailed employment histories, health records, and even reviews of online activity. Studies already show that many countries are turning to digital risk assessments, using algorithms to evaluate applicants before a human officer ever reviews the case. This means one misunderstood post, association, or data error could silently impact an application. For international students and skilled workers, these laws could raise the bar significantly. Longer processing times, higher fees, and stricter compliance requirements may become the norm. Migrants could also be subject to ongoing monitoring after arrival, including work restrictions or mandatory reporting. Supporters say this protects the local workforce, but opponents argue it creates a system of constant uncertainty and conditional belonging. Tourists may also feel the impact. Short-term visitors could be asked to provide more documentation, travel histories, or biometric data before boarding a flight. Even transit passengers might fall under expanded screening rules. The idea of crossing borders freely becomes less about travel and more about data approval. What makes this especially important is the global pattern. Immigration systems around the world are increasingly interconnected, sharing databases and screening methods. If New Zealand adopts stricter digital vetting, similar systems may spread internationally. Over time, borders may shift from physical checkpoints to invisible digital filters, quietly deciding who gets to move and who doesn't, long before they ever reach the airport. Number 4. Cash restrictions and tracked payments. By 2026, New Zealand could move much closer to a cash-limited society where digital and trackable payments become the default for everyday life. Governments argue that reducing cash helps fight money laundering, tax evasion, and organized crime, And research does show that digital transactions are easier to monitor and audit. But as cash fades, so does one of the last forms of financial privacy. Under proposed changes, businesses may be encouraged or even required to accept only digital payments for certain services. Large cash transactions could face strict limits, mandatory reporting, or outright bans. Every purchase, transfer, or donation would leave a digital trail, permanently recorded and potentially accessible to authorities or financial institutions. While this increases transparency, it also raises serious concerns about who controls that data and how it is used. For everyday people, the impact could be immediate. Those without reliable access to banking, smartphones, or digital literacy, including the elderly and low-income communities, may struggle to participate fully in the economy. Small vendors and informal workers could lose flexibility, while fees from payment processors quietly eat into earnings. Studies show that fully digital systems tend to centralize power within banks and payment platforms, reducing consumer choice. There is also the issue of control. When money is entirely digital, it can be frozen, delayed, restricted, or programmed. In extreme cases, access to funds could be limited during disputes, investigations, or emergencies. What once required physical enforcement can now happen instantly with a few clicks. Globally, the move toward cashless systems is accelerating. Countries are watching each other closely, adopting similar frameworks. If New Zealand formalizes cash restrictions, it may signal a future where spending is not just a personal choice, but a monitored activity, reshaping the relationship between individuals, money, and the state.
Number 3. Mandatory digital ID systems. By 2026, New Zealand is expected to expand the use of mandatory digital ID systems, transforming how people access services, prove identity, and interact with both government and private platforms. Digital IDs are promoted as a solution to fraud, identity theft, and inefficiency. Studies show that centralized digital identification can reduce paperwork and speed up verification, but the deeper concern lies in how much personal data is collected and who ultimately controls it. Under these systems, a single digital identity could be required to access healthcare, banking, travel services, education, and even social media platforms. Instead of showing multiple documents, citizens may rely on one centralized digital profile containing biometric data, address history, financial records, and online activity markers. While convenient, this creates a powerful data hub that, if misused or breached, could expose millions at once. For everyday users, the risk is not just hacking, it's dependency. If access to a digital ID is suspended, expired, or flagged incorrectly, individuals could find themselves locked out of essential services overnight. Research into digital identity rollouts show that errors disproportionately affect marginalized groups, leading to delays, appeals, and loss of access with little human oversight. There is also the issue of scope creep. Systems introduced for limited purposes often expand quietly over time. What begins as optional verification can become mandatory for daily activities. Once a digital ID is required everywhere, opting out becomes nearly impossible without opting out of society itself. Internationally, digital ID frameworks are being closely studied and replicated. If New Zealand successfully implements a mandatory system, it may encourage broader adoption across other countries. The long-term implication is profound. Identity shifts from something you possess to something that is granted, monitored, and managed, redefining personal autonomy in the digital age.
Number 2. Stronger hate speech and online content regulations. By 2026, New Zealand is expected to enforce stricter hate speech and online content regulations, targeting harmful, offensive, or misleading speech across digital platforms. The government's stated goal is to protect communities from online abuse, harassment, and radicalization, which is supported by research showing that unchecked hate speech can lead to real-world violence and social unrest. However, the challenge lies in balancing protection with freedom of expression, and critics warn that the laws could have far-reaching consequences for everyday communication. Under the proposed regulations, platforms and users could face fines or legal action for posting content that is deemed harmful, even if the intention is satire, debate, or commentary. Studies on content moderation highlight that automated systems often misclassify speech, flagging legitimate discussions while failing to catch subtle harassment. This creates a landscape where digital expression is constantly monitored, filtered, and potentially restricted. For creators, journalists, and everyday users, the implications are significant. Posting controversial opinions or critical commentary could result in warnings, account suspension, or even legal consequences. The laws may require social media companies to actively monitor, remove, or label content, placing much of the decision-making in the hands of private platforms with their own biases and policies. This blurs the line between government regulation and corporate control over speech. There is also a psychological effect to consider. Research shows that overregulation can lead to self-censorship, where people avoid discussing certain topics or sharing information out of fear of repercussions. This could stifle public debate, academic discourse, and the natural exchange of ideas that societies rely on to evolve. The larger concern is global influence. New Zealand's approach to online content regulation could become a model for other countries, quietly shaping international norms on speech, expression, and digital behavior, with long-lasting effects on personal freedom and online culture. Number 2. Stronger hate speech and online content regulations. By 2026, New Zealand is expected to enforce stricter hate speech and online content regulations, targeting harmful, offensive, or misleading speech across digital platforms. The government's stated goal is to protect communities from online abuse, harassment, and radicalization, which is supported by research showing that unchecked hate speech can lead to real-world violence and social unrest. However, the challenge lies in balancing protection with freedom of expression, and critics warn that the laws could have far-reaching consequences for everyday communication. Under the proposed regulations, platforms and users could face fines or legal action for posting content that is deemed harmful, even if the intention is satire, debate, or commentary. Studies on content moderation highlight that automated systems often misclassify speech, flagging legitimate discussions while failing to catch subtle harassment. This creates a landscape where digital expression is constantly monitored, filtered, and potentially restricted. For creators, journalists, and everyday users, the implications are significant. Posting controversial opinions or critical commentary could result in warnings, account suspension, or even legal consequences. The laws may require social media companies to actively monitor, remove, or label content, placing much of the decision-making in the hands of private platforms with their own biases and policies. This blurs the line between government regulation and corporate control over speech. There is also a psychological effect to consider. Research shows that overregulation can lead to self-censorship, where people avoid discussing certain topics or sharing information out of fear of repercussions. This could stifle public debate, academic discourse, and the natural exchange of ideas that societies rely on to evolve. The larger concern is global influence. New Zealand's approach to online content regulation could become a model for other countries, quietly shaping international norms on speech, expression, and digital behavior, with long-lasting effects on personal freedom and online culture.
Number 1. Expanded digital surveillance powers. By 2026, New Zealand is expected to expand digital surveillance powers, giving authorities unprecedented access to emails, messages, social media activity, and online behavior. While governments argue that these measures are essential for national security, crime prevention, and public safety, critics warn that they could fundamentally alter the balance between privacy and control. Studies consistently show that increased monitoring can deter crime, but they also highlight significant risks of abuse, errors, and overreach when surveillance powers are too broad. Under the proposed expansions, authorities could potentially access metadata, communications content, and even encrypted messages with minimal oversight. Individuals using cloud services, messaging apps, or social platforms may find their activity tracked and stored in government databases. For many, this raises a critical question. How private is your digital life when nearly every click, post, or message could be monitored? The impact on citizens could be profound. Even ordinary online behavior, commenting on forums, posting on social media, or using financial apps, might be flagged, analyzed, or scrutinized. Research indicates that awareness of surveillance can alter behavior, creating a chilling effect where people self-censor or avoid certain topics, fearing legal consequences or government attention. Businesses, especially tech companies and startups, could face stricter compliance requirements, needing to provide access to customer data or build systems that enable monitoring.
This could slow innovation and increase operational costs, particularly for small and medium enterprises. The broader concern is precedent. Once expanded surveillance powers are in place, they rarely retract fully. If New Zealand implements these laws, it could influence other nations considering similar measures, gradually reshaping global norms around privacy, civil liberties, and what it means to have a private digital life in the modern world. Over time, monitoring that begins as protection may quietly become a permanent feature of daily life. The laws we've discussed, from digital surveillance to social media limits, aren't just abstract rules on paper. They have the power to reshape daily life, personal freedoms, and privacy for millions, both in New Zealand and potentially around the world. Staying informed is no longer optional. It's essential to understand how these changes could touch your life, finances, and your digital identity. If this video opened your eyes, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay updated on global laws that could affect you. Comment below, which law worries you the most and why? YouTube video description 150 words. Discover the terrifying New Zealand laws that could impact millions of people in 2026. From expanded digital surveillance powers to social media age restrictions, these laws are reshaping privacy, online freedom, and personal rights. Learn about mandatory digital ID systems, stricter immigration screening, climate compliance penalties, property and housing regulations, and more. Whether you use social media, make digital payments, or plan to travel internationally, these laws may affect you sooner than you think. We break down each law clearly, highlighting the real-life impact on everyday citizens, businesses, and families. Stay informed and understand how New Zealand's legal changes could influence global trends in privacy, online safety, and personal freedoms. Don't miss this essential guide to staying safe and prepared for the legal landscape of 2026. Watch till the end to learn which laws could directly impact your life and how to protect yourself.